Oh my God, I can record. That's amazing. Okay, so everything in Judaism has some aspect of law connected to it, right? There's rules for everything. And if you want to go into insanely deep detail, you can buy a book like this, Morning in Halakha, which is going to clock in at about 500 pages. And of those 500 pages, the first 55 have to do, well, actually, a little bit less than that. The first 50 pages have to deal with death and dying, right? So there are laws for visiting the sick, and there are expectations of what you should be doing when you die. And there is so much that they are expecting you to do. And of course, no one ever thinks about this until the moment of death. And as a rabbi walking in to visit someone, this is not the time to say, hey, can I educate you about the Jewish law regarding the end of life? So I'm glad that we're all here a bit earlier. Now, if I wanted to have a hint of what I should say at, near the end of life, or what the tradition says in general, I might look in a book that is familiar to all of us, which is the Daily Prayer Book. Because the Daily Prayer Book goes through everything that you need in sequence. So it starts with morning prayers, and then it has Birkat HaMazon, because you need to bless food, right? And then after, then it has Mincha, the afternoon service, and then it has the evening service, and then after the evening service, it has the evening service for Shabbat, and after that, going to sleep, okay, and then the afternoon service for Shabbat, okay, and now we're getting into like the end of the book, where, if you hold up the side of the book, this section here is going to be kind of, a darker color, and this side here are pages that we never open. So going into the section that we never open, okay, Hanukkah, Purim, Yom HaShoah, blessings of gratitude, blessing after eating, here it is, weddings, births, and then healing. So healing 251, which we'll sing later on this evening, page 251, Psalm 121. And right after healing, then you come to for one whose illness is incurable. And they suggest, just the end of Adon Olam. B'yado avkid ruchi be'et ishan v'ya'ira, v'yim ruchi gaviyati Adon Ali v'lo ira. I place my spirit in God's care. When I sleep as when I awake. My body too, I can feel God near. God is with me, I have no fear. And then the next page is Vidui. Now, we've heard the word Vidui before, right? Where have we heard Vidui? Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
Yes, very good. So we have Vidui on Yom Kippur. In the Sephardic tradition, they have Vidui every day as part of Tachanun, but this Vidui is a different Vidui. This is the deathbed Vidui, okay? So I want to share with you the page 256 from the prayer book. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to find that, and we're going to share it, and there we are, okay? So here is the Vidui, right? And the expectation is you're going to say all this in Hebrew. Kol hakavod. Okay. Elohai, Velohei Avotai, my God and God of my ancestors, Tavo lefanecha tefilati, va'al tit'alem mitchinati. I'm bringing my prayer before you. Do not turn away. Boshti vegan nilchalmti ki hiskalti la'asot. I'm kind of embarrassed because at times I haven't done things as well as I should have. Va'ata, and right now, okay? Kachna onyi umaradi lachaparti. Except for me, my my contrition and my pain and suffering as a kapara, as a sacrificial offering. Okay, let my pain, be something to go to my credit. Umachal lim shuvati, right? Pardon my shortcomings. Kilacha levad chatati, because it was only to you. I failed you. Okay, I failed you, right? So I'm not sure if this is the approach that most people have at the end of their lives, to look back and say, I've completely failed. Although many deathbed confessionals from people at the end of their life, they list their regrets. Usually their regrets are, I didn't spend enough time with my family. But okay, opportunity to express your regrets. What is next? Okay. Modeh ani lefenecha. I'm so thankful. Adonai Elohai v'Elahei Avatai, my God, God of my ancestors, shachayai mesurim b'yadecha, because my life is in your hands. Yehi ratzon, may it be desirable milefenecha, before you. Shetarapeini refuah shlema, that you're going to heal me a complete healing, right? And we say to people, you should say the vidui anytime you're worried, because a lot of people say it and they get better. And it's true. I had a congregant who was dying for years. Buried his wife while he was waiting actually, that was the congregant across the street, but never mind, okay? So you could get better. V'im hamavet kala, but if death is, here, v'nacharatz me'imcha, and I'm going to be, brought from you. Akachanu miyadacha behava. Please take my take me from your hands with love. But he mitati kapara al kol chatatim shechatati lefenacha, and let my death be as a offering for all of the sins I've done. V'tashpiya li me'rav tuv hatzafun letzadikim v'tode'eni orach chayim, right? And grant me a portion of the reward of the righteous, and teach me the ways of eternal life. Okay? Avi, Yitumim, V'dayan Alumanot, the father of orphans and the judge of the widows. Hagen ba'ad karovai, haikarim asher nafshik shura b'nafsham. Please look out for my beloved family, that are the people who my soul is bound up in their lives. B'yadcha afkidruchi, in your hand I place my spirit. Padita oti Adonai elemet, amen v'amen. Right? Redeem me, God of truth. Okay? And then Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Praise to you, Lord, Adonai hu Elohim, Adonai hu Elohim, which is, by the way, what we say at the end of Yom Kippur. So, okay, that's what you're supposed to say. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is like, huh? And 10 is, oh yeah, I knew that. How does this passage strike you? You can put your comments in the in the chat even.
I'll put it at a 5.
What?
I'll put it at a 5, I guess.
4 out of 5? Okay. Okay. Is this comforting?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily comforting, but I guess it kind of gives some perspective, right? I guess some of our questions kind of like view, right? Is so I would not say comforting, but put things in perspective.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Shelley, you're busy reading.
I don't know if it's comforting, but it's realistic, I guess. It's sort of,
Yeah.
and it's kind of touching that you're
Yeah.
worried about your family also.
Yeah. I mean, your last thought should really be about your loved ones. I love that. Yeah. And it's honest, because the one thing that we don't want to talk to people about their imminent death because we don't want to upset them. And usually I think people who are dying are wondering, why the hell isn't anyone talking to me about the obvious thing and, pussyfooting around, right? Because they know they're dying. I only met one guy who didn't understand why he was dying. Other than that, people know, right? And they might want to talk about it. And death might be more meaningful if, it's looked at as a process. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a taboo topic because we don't experience people dying around us anymore because death is no longer in the home, right? Okay. So that's the top paragraph. And then the bottom paragraph on the page is, if the patient is no longer able to recite it, you can do it for them. So now we are putting words into someone's mouth. Okay? Modim anachnu lach. We're so thankful to you. Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloheinu, Lord our God, God of our ancestors, shechayenu mesurim biyadecha, in that our lives are, in your hands. Yehiru mifanecha, may it be, desirable to you. Sheterapeh et so-and-so, that you should heal so-and-so. V'im hamavet kala v'necharaz me'imcha, and if death is imminent and, yikachenu miyadecha be'ahava, may they accept their death with love, right? May they accept their fate from you with love. But he mitzato kapara al kol chataim shachata'a lefenecha, and may their death be a kapara, a atonement offering for anything that they may have done. Tashpia lo merav tuv hatzafun letzadikim, v'tade'ehu orach chaim. Grant them a portion of the reward for the righteous, teach them the ways of eternal life, and then Shema Yisrael. Okay? I've said that for people. I mean, that's an honest thing. I mean, that's kind of what we want for people, right? I hope they accept death.
Actually, that's interesting. I didn't even know that particular paragraph existed. I kind of knew there was something, if a person knew they were dying, they might say. I didn't know about saying something on other people's behalf, and it's just making me think of, suppose, sometimes people are on hospice, but basically they're in so much pain that they are, have they're not really, you don't know how conscious they are. So this seems to be something that if someone is getting, medication to relieve pain and you don't know what they're experiencing, I suppose this would be something if you might want to say on their behalf.
Yeah. So I think it says something about us as human beings that these words, this page has been in the prayer book the entire time that we've been using this prayer book. I'm going to tell you it was in the previous edition of Sim Shalom. And people are just not bored enough in services to find out what else is in the book. Okay? Because, I mean, it's just a page or two. I mean, the next page after it, by the way, is a guide to mourning, right? So who's a mourner? Between death and burial, mourner's kaddish, shiva, all those things. It's right in our prayer book. Shloshim Yortzeit Yisker, services in a house of mourning. It's like, it's there, but you know, who's ever bored enough to look in the prayer book to try to find it? Judith, did you know that Vidui, the deathbed confessional, is in the weekday prayer book?
Yes, but not because I'm bored, just because when I have extra time, I read things.
Aha. Okay. You're not bored, but you have extra time to read. I want to put it to you that that's just a different way of saying I'm bored, so I'm
Now,
reading.
see, I've learned something
I
already
mean-
because I did not know there was such a prayer in the prayer book.
Rabbi, I mean,
Yep.
between TI's minion and this minion, I have 15 minutes.
Yeah, no. In the meantime, I mean, there's there's great stuff in here, right? There's an earthquake. What's the blessing? Okay, so we've been talking about this notion of a deathbed confessional, right? So that's the front paging page. Oh, this is stupid.
It's upside down. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I know it's upside down. So as I said, that's let's see if I can fix that. No. Let's see here. Can we?
Is there a rotate command?
So here, yeah, there is, and here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to find the file that I had opened, and I'm going that I had thought I had saved, and I'm going to. Oh, where is that? And for some reason, so let's save the I didn't save the changes. So let's save the changes. And we're going to save that here. And we're going to save this here. Do we want to replace it? Absolutely. And we're just going to go back and go out of here a moment. People are coming in. Let's just delete that. And technology is amazing, isn't it? Okay. Oops. Let me stop the share for a moment. Share. Stop the share. Okay. Because I think it's almost time for Minion, right?
5 minutes.
Okay. So let's continue talking just a little bit then. Okay. So we've talked about this notion of the deathbed confessional, right? So let me share with you the instructions that they give to rabbis, because it's let's see. So what are you guys seeing here? Oh, nothing, because I haven't shared it yet. Okay. Okay. Does that look about right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. But only the top half of the page, right?
Correct.
Okay, let me put this over here where we can see a bit more of the page. Well, okay. So in the Rabbi's manual, there's more stuff, right? Okay. So yeah, okay. Forgive me, I've my pain is suffering. May it be your will. Then I'll have a complete healing, right? Same as what we had before. My life and death are in your hands. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing. And the Rabbi's version, when we're saying on behalf of someone else, is a little bit more enhanced than the version that is in the prayer book, because we say, may it atone for all those times when they could have done better. So that's cute. That's cute. And then protect their family, in their hand is their spirit, then the Shema, and Adonai Melech, Adonai Melech, Adonai Yimlech Le'olam Va'ed, Adonai Hu Elohim, Adonai Hu Elohim. Again, this is beginning to look like the end of Yom Kippur. And yeah, that's it. So that's this notion of vidui. So the expectation is that the end of our lives, we should have some sort of deathbed confession. We should have some sort of summary. And I think that this notion of being able to summarize things is a great idea. The problem is that most deaths, I think, are not planned, and most deaths are not graceful, right? I've been to, I think, one bedside where it's like, okay, my organs have failed, summon the whole family, and I'll spend the whole day visiting, and then I'll go to sleep and not wake up. It was beautiful, but only if it happened that way once, right? I remember visiting someone else the day before they died. We had a nice conversation. But usually people don't have the clarity of that moment. We need to daven, but Abraham, was it Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob who was said he grew old and died, and that was a miracle, because it used to be you had no clue that you're going to die, and then you sneezed and you were gone. But at least if you grew old, then you had a hint that something was coming. Okay, we're now going to pause for davening.
But you can't start for, now it's 7:30, but we still need another person.
Uh-oh.
There we got it.
There you go.
2 extra people. Additional, not extra, 3.
Aha.
They wait till 7:30.
Yep, yep. Well, you have to designate someone.
We davened last night. Would you like to lead again this evening?
I'll
You
do
didn't do last night, you did this morning. I get confused.
I think Shalom just volunteered, right?
I did.
Oh, Shalom just volunteered. Okay.
All right. ורחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, וירבה להשיב אפו ולא ירא כל חמתו. אדוני יושיע מלך יעננו ביום קוראנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Baruch
מבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch.
אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים.
Amen. Ahavat Holamis.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Amen.
Shema
Shema Yisrael. Adonai.
Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישורך. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה, זה אלי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגהלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. ושמו צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד. ברוך אדוני. כי המלכות שלך היא, ולעולמי תמלוך בכבוד, כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ועל כל מעשיו. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועל מה דיברה קירותיה וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון ובימיכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך עולמי על מיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלש בדקודשה, ברכו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, וברכתה ונחמתה דמיון בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. Silence on media page 142.
Okay, so I think we've done to death, if you'll pardon the phrase, the notion of a deathbed confessional. And for those people who are now aware of it, it's something that you can think of saying, and I guess either you have to have your prayer book handy or you want to print it up and have it near your bedside, or I'm not sure, or do you have it in your glove box along with your kippah? I'm not sure. Or is it something that you bring up with someone when you're planning their death, hopefully a year or 2 or 10 before it? So that's option A. Option B is in the likely situation that your loved one is comatose or non-compos mentis, not with it anymore, then you have something that you can say. When I visit people when they're dying, and I'm sometimes asked to go and visit someone when they're dying, I might say this vidui with them or for them. Usually I sing Adon Olam, or I'll sing the 23rd Psalm, or I'll give them a Mishaber for healing. But that's what I do. But that's kind of the what we have to say about on your deathbed. This book with all the halacha, it has even more things that you could say in addition to the vidui. You should wow. You should say a phrase here, and then you should do the vidui, and then you should, here's a short version if you find it hard to speak, and raise 2 fingers upwards and say, Master of the universe, I hereby accept my actual death joyfully and wholeheartedly, to fulfill the positive commandments that include all the mitzvot and rectifies all the violations of the negative commandments, since all of them can be corrected by the performance of this positive commandment, in order to remove the thought of the evil inclination which desires to entice my soul away from the holy service. And so I hereby transmit my body, life, soul, and spirit for the unification of God's great name. May I merit to unify your holy name with great love and exceeding devotion, to unify the holy God, blessed be, with perfect love and fear, as it is said, when I call out the name of God, attribute greatness to my God, and may it be your will that my rest be peaceful. And if you're still around at this point, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Throw in Aleinu, sure. Throw in Emet V'Yetziv after that. Here's a Mishnah you could learn. A sacrifice is off slaughtered for the sake of. Anyways, they've got a long expectation of real verbosity at the end of your life. I don't know if that's realistic, but you have to start somewhere. I think we can take a step back from this and say that there is an interest in facing death and not denying it, and recognizing that it's final. Okay. Questions up to this point? Okay. Responses, reactions.
actually-
Yes, thank you, Arlene.
Good. Well, this is kind of strange, but sometimes people kind of may know and they may be scared. So if they're saying to you, even if they're not dying imminently, that they're scared, how do you respond?
Okay. So I think that the response is it is very scary. And it's something that everyone you've ever known who's died has faced. It's something that everyone who's ever lived will face. And I will sit here with you so that you don't feel alone. And the halacha is that when someone's dying, you don't leave them alone. So there is some halacha about how to behave in the room of someone who is dying. What it is that you can sing Nishma. Etiquette for visitors, okay? When a person is about to die, one is not allowed to leave him, so that he will not be alone when his soul departs. It's a mitzvah to stand next to a person when his soul departs, as it is said, he will live eternally, he will not see the pit, for he saw the wise die. Okay? Now, that said, I can't tell you how many times I was at the hospital and the family's there and the family's there. And always, it's when the family went to the elevator to get lunch, that's when the person died because they didn't want to die in front of their family. Okay. So it goes both ways. And what you say to people at this time for the survivors is they were waiting for you to leave because they didn't want to trouble you, because otherwise they're going to feel guilty. Oh my God, I wasn't there, right? It's very important to make people feel good about things that they have no control over and are in the past, okay? That's very important. Good advice the world over. If someone's sitting near the sick person and no one else is present who knows about the dying, he should not leave him to pray. It's of great significance, persons, children, relatives be present when the soul depart, but they should try not to cry. Okay. And then they get all sexist and say you shouldn't have women in the room, and that's enough for that book. Okay. I think, how do you comfort someone when you have absolutely no words of comfort? Right? I mean, that's is the great challenge of life. You know, you've just been handed down a diagnosis, which is terrible. What I find is helpful is to name it. That diagnosis is terrible. It's not fair. It's awful. You might say, I'm so impressed that, you know, if it was me, I'd completely lose it. So I'm very impressed here. But that can be read both ways. It sucks. It's terrible. And the only thing I can do is sit here with you. So if you'd like me to be with you, I'm here. I'm going to hold your hand. And we can cry together. I don't think there's a point in trying to cheer people up. It's like, no, it is not your job. And this goes when you're making a Shiva visit as well. It's not your job to make the person feel better. They're not supposed to feel better. They're supposed to feel terrible. That's why they're sitting Shiva. Okay? It's your job that they don't feel abandoned, that they feel that they're not alone. One of the tenets of consolation, which I learned from a book that I read recently called On Consolation, which was one of the most best books I've read recently. It's by, I have the slipcover. I've misplaced the book. I think I lent it out. It's called On. And who was it? He was Ignatieff, Michael Ignatieff. And what what he noted is that sometimes it's comforting to say, you know, you're not alone in this. Other people have also suffered. They were not saying that their suffering is worse or that your suffering is worse, but it's not personal. Everyone goes through this. And sometimes that's comforting. I don't know if that helps, but it's all I have at the moment.
Yeah, no, thank you. I guess I was, thinking, kind of in two places, one for, when something was more imminent, but I think some of your reply also could be when someone finds out, or they have something or it's getting worse, or they find out they have something and they're just scared. And I guess you kind of reinforced, because when I encountered that, all I could say is, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Even if this person, and I'm not talking about someone who is imminently dying, but just someone who, had a particular diagnosis and it wasn't good. And the best I could say was, well, I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I must have done something along the right, because that's all I could think of.
Well, that's the human thing. And, sometimes you can try to find the humor in it. You have to know your audience. You really have to know your audience. Sometimes there's a value in trying to out crazy the crazy, where, if they're really upset, it is a technique where you push it even further, try to make it sound even worse until they say, wait a minute, it's not that bad. Again, you have to know your audience, right? That's more for when people are very angry. They say, I just want to kill them. You say, well, okay. So what weapons shall we get, and how can I help you? It's amazing how that de-escalates things, right? Just if it doesn't de-escalate it, then you have to worry, right? Because if they're like, yeah, okay, let's look up, gun markets, then okay, you've got a problem. But that's a little bit off topic. So the question was asked, what about end of life and do not resuscitate orders and that sort of thing, right? Shall we go in that direction right now? Okay, so if you were to look on the website of the Rabbinical Assembly, and where is the oh, there it is, yeah, okay. And you were looked to the website. So this is the Rabbinical Assembly, and it's www.rabbinicalassembly.org. And this is the rabbi's view, but I'm going to log out and I'm going to go to the layperson's view. And you go to Committee of Jewish Law and Standards, and you go to Mourning and Family Purity, Your Idea, and that takes you to, it slowly takes you to here. So there's kosher slaughter, and then there is all these topics, and let's look at visiting the sick and medicine and responding to death. So here are some thoughts on obligation to preserve life, question of postmortem organ donation. So organ donation is one issue there. A halachic ethic of care for the terminally ill. So in 1990, you have two opinions on what should be end-of-life care. And one opinion is by Rabbi Israel Reisner, and he writes many pages on it. And the other is by Elliot Dorff, and he writes many pages on it. And then Rabbi Reisner, in order to make things easier for us, it has an article on what's the difference between his view and Rabbi Dorff's. And then Amy Alberg responds to it, and Joel Roth responds to it. And that's what happened in 1990. And then in 1993, Jewish Medical Directives for Healthcare, and then triage in pandemic. So if we look at Ma B'Neinu, which is kind of like a summary of what's going on here. So let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Okay. The primary difference in theory between the positions of Rabbi Reisner and Rabbi Dorff may be summarized by their key phrases. Neither the quality of life nor its likely short duration are admitted as mitigating circumstances. In other words, Rabbi Reisner wants to keep you alive, and Rabbi Dorff says, the fetus and the treifa are both cases of human beings whose blood is indeed judged to be less red than that of viable people. Rabbi Reisner insists on the inviolability of the principle of protecting even chaye shava, a life of short duration. Rabbi Dorff feels that the principle is moot, status of treifa, and you need consider the patient's best interest, even if the patient's best interests don't line up with length of time, but rather quality of time. Okay. Both agree in principle and practice. The large area of autonomy that the patient holds with regard to his or her own treatment, patients can rule certain treatment options off limits and choose hospice as a treatment option to draft advanced directives and the parameter of within Jewish parameters. Both permit the withdrawal of mechanical life support where unsupported life has been shown to be impossible under the primary precedent of removing impediments to death of a gosses. So if you are on a breathing machine, and if they remove the machine, you'll stop breathing, you can remove the machine because you're not breathing on your own. It's just delaying the inevitable. On the other hand, if you have a feeding tube, you can't remove the feeding tube. Okay. They agree that okay. So Dorff would permit withholding or withdrawing medication, and he would allow withdrawing artificial hydration. And Rabbi Reiser says, no, you got to give them the medication, you got to give the nutrition, you have to give them the hydration, as long as it believes it to be beneficial. Okay. So there are these positions here. There was a time when I paid attention to them and I really kind of knew them. And I'm kind of less interested in that now, I'm sorry to say. But they do have a form to fill out where you can, there is a Jewish version of the what's it called? A living will type thing. It's at the end of either one of them or the other of them. Oh yeah, so Jewish medical directives. So here we have an approved form. It only took them 3 years to figure it out, right? So here's a good summary and advanced directives. And this can be like a booklet. And then there's forms. And here's the proxy. And then, you know, do you want your agent to do things on their own, or do you want them to consult? Instructions for your agent, alternate agents. Here's instructions of what I want done. I'm Jewish, and Judaism values life and demands we seek medical care. Nothing is to take away from that, but here's a guide. The goal of the treatment is, it's my wish that all prudent medical treatment should be extended as much as possible. But if you want to be inconsistent with Rabbi Reisner, you can say, should that be deemed impossible, I want those caring for me to act for my benefit, interpreting the value in light of the choices I've made below, like stopping things. I wish to know what's going on. I don't want to know what's going on. I've appointed someone. I've not appointed anyone. Rabbinic consultation. If I can make my own decisions, I want to consult the rabbi. Or, yeah, I don't want to talk to the rabbi. You guys can talk to the rabbi. Diagnostic tests, surgery if I'm terminally ill, amputation if I'm terminally ill, feeding. I would want to receive artificial nutrition and hydration. I standard that this appointment would require restraint. Okay. I would want not to be fed through feeding tubes at all. And then here's the ones that are inconsistent with Rabbi Reisner's opinion. I don't want to be fed at all. Okay. Aggressive medical care if I'm terminally ill, mechanical life support if I'm terminal ill, CPR, pain, risk, and relief, sedation, hospital home, permanent loss of consciousness. Here's what I want to happen. Donation ideas and autopsy. So this is a document that can be filled out. It's a little depressing, or it could be enlivening. I'm not sure, but this really encapsulates the Jewish position, or a
And-
Jewish position. And every so often we should have a get together where we all fill out our things. I just want to say one thing, Arlene, and then
Yeah.
because it's funny because Eric, you talked about a Catholic hospital. So I remember when DNR orders first became a big thing, and I was on the ethics board of St. Joseph's, and one of the doctors says, we're a Catholic hospital. We believe that when you die, you are welcomed into the embrace of Jesus and into heaven. Who the hell are we? I'm paraphrasing. Who the hell are we to interfere with that? They're in the bosom of heaven and we're doing CPR? If it's their time, let them go to heaven. Why are we resuscitating them at all? It's an interesting discussion. Okay, Arlene.
Now, I was in looking at all those details. That's pretty involved. The legal ones that I have seen are very much shorter, and I'm sure those could be tailored, but I just had no idea that there those that exist with a Jewish
So
focus to them. I'm familiar with the ones that the lawyer draws up for
Right.
you, and you check what you want or don't want.
So I think what this document is trying to do, let me stop the share. I think what this document is trying to do is envision all the possible places where the family is going to be at loggerheads and they can't ask the individual what they want, and try to anticipate that and get an answer in advance so that people are not in conflict at the absolute worst time possible, right? So yeah, it's try to imagine all these things and go through to those. Yeah. So Grace, are you want to add something?
Let me see if I'm muted or not. Okay,
No,
can
you're
you hear
not
me?
muted because I can hear you.
Okay. I guess I was wondering about for a close family member when their time has come, asking for forgiveness. And I apologize if you covered any of that from the beginning because I logged on late.
So I think that's a great thing. I think it's important to ask for forgiveness. You might not get what you want, but after they're gone, you're going to be having that conversation for the rest of your life. I wish I had. So go for it, right? We're supposed to do that every year before Rosh Hashanah. And
Right.
Before, right? So
Mhm.
al kama v'kama, all the more so, I think to go and ask for forgiveness on a deathbed is I think important. It's but the question is it for your benefit?
Right.
Is it for
I
their
yes.
benefit, right? You're asking for forgiveness is for your benefit.
Well,
Your
maybe asking for forgiveness is not what I guess maybe saying you're sorry for
yes, that
so saying you're sorry, if I ever did
Yes.
anything,
You have literally taken the words right out of my mouth.
Okay.
That was my next sentence was, on the other hand, to say, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm expressing my regret. I'm so
Right.
sorry I did that to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That I think is I mean, when any apology that includes an explanation is an apology, but it's not saying I'm sorry. Apologies are explanations, right? But what we call an apology shouldn't be. Whenever I'm truly sorry for something what I've done, I try to say to the person, I'm so sorry I did that to you. And I regret it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say I don't know what I was thinking. I don't say, the cat was on the roof and the child I screwed up and I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to press further, okay, fine. You can tell them what you learned and this and that. But I think it's helpful to know that the other person feels bad about it. I don't know why. Probably it's a psychology thing there, but I think it's more honest. So now, on The Good Place, we watched an episode where on his deathbed, this fellow is told, by the way, I lied to you and let you believe this thing, and it really upset him. Sometimes it's not the right time. I mean, the deathbed is not the moment to say, by the way, I was having an affair and I've been cheating on you. No, that's not the right time. Okay. Some things, I don't think you should do that to someone. That may make you feel better, but I don't think that helps the person who's dying.
Because it should be about that person, not
It is
yeah,
about them.
them. Totally.
In the same way that when you're visiting someone who's mourning, you want to cheer them up because their unhappiness is making you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you want to cheer them up. But your job is not to cheer them up. Your job is to be present for them.
Right.
If they want to cheer up, they can cheer up. Okay? But your job is to validate where they are in that moment. And I think that goes for someone who's dying. It's like, I'm in a lot of pain. And it's, yeah, I'm so sorry for that. That's terrible. Pain is a terrible thing. And I don't know what God was thinking when God gave us all of these nerve endings to tell us, hey, there's a problem, without having a snooze button on it to say, okay, I've got the message. You don't have to keep telling me. It's I don't know what God was thinking when God created human beings. There's a lot of things that I think could have been done differently. And I think there's some comfort in knowing that, yeah, you're pissed off too. They're not wrong. They don't have to be stoic. They don't have to be strong. They don't have to be anything. They just have to be not alone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, these are good questions. It's we are afraid to have these conversations and we avoid them, and it's awkward and it's a disservice, and people are fundamentally stupid because in order not to cause someone pain, we cause them a lot of pain by not doing things that we ought to do, right? So your wife has died, your anniversary or her birthday comes around, and nobody calls you. Why does nobody call you?
Well, they may not know it's her
Oh, they
birthday
know.
or,
They know. They know. Why are they not calling you?
they're afraid.
They're afraid. They're afraid that if they call you, what'll happen?
It'll
You'll
make
be
you feel better.
upset.
It'll make you feel upset and sad. Well, newsflash, the person has a calendar. They're already aware that it's the anniversary or the birthday. So you can't make them sad by pointing out okay, there was one person, we received one note at the synagogue saying, please do not send me Yortzeit reminders, it upsets me. Okay, that's the exception. But for 99% of the rest of us, having someone phone up and say, I'm guessing it's a hard day today, and I miss them too. Right? So I expect that if I'm dying and nobody wants to talk about it, well, it's entirely possible that I want to talk about it. And I think the way to determine whether it's a safe topic or not is to say, do you want to talk about this? And if they say no, then you have your answer. And if they say yes, it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation for you, but it might be very useful for the other person. Because they don't have to be stoic and in denial for your benefit anymore. Okay, I'm not that wise. You guys have things to say. So what's going on in your mind right now? Just what's the thoughts in your head right now, Milt?
Well, I was thinking about saying sorry. Unless you're specific when you say sorry, it's a meaningless gesture. You have to say why you are sorry. And if you do that, you're bringing up unpleasant things from the past that would upset the person who's dying. So I say, you say, oh, I stole money from your business, which caused you to lose the business. You were homeless for 10 years on the street. And I'm sorry I did that to you. Is that going to make the person who's dying feel better? I don't think so. Unless they turn around and say, well, I forgive you for that. I think it's better for the person who's dying to say they're sorry for any sins that they've committed. And then you can forgive them for those sins.
So I think that's a valid way of looking at it. I know that look, if the people who stole my sukkah were to contact me and say, David, you may have gotten over this already, or you may be really angry about it, but it was me, I stole your sukkah, and I wish I hadn't. Okay, if I'm totally over it, I'm still totally over it. But now I can say, it's okay, I'm totally over it. And if I'm not totally over it, hallelujah, this is closure. Now I get to yell at you. This is fantastic.
Yeah, but you're not on your deathbed at that time.
Well,
if you're on your deathbed, I think it makes a difference.
I don't know. You have to use your best judgment. I'm going to guess, Milt, that on your deathbed, I'm not going to apologize to you for anything.
Well, you have nothing to apologize for.
Well, I know, but
right.
You may be correct, but I think I might be correct too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good to have a concern, and I think that if you think this would upset me, by me I mean you. If you think to yourself, yeah, if this was said to me, it would upset me, then probably you shouldn't say it. But I've had people come to me and say, I feel so guilty because when my mother was dying and she was in the room by herself and I had to deal with this and this and this and I had to deal with it and I wasn't there for her. And I feel like I let her down. And I've been carrying this guilt for years. So what, of course, do I say to her? I say, tell me about your mom. If your mom were here in the room right now, and you told her what was going on, would she be upset by it? Oh, no, of course not. My mom wouldn't be upset about that. Well, if your mom wouldn't be upset about it, why are you upset with yourself on her behalf? That's a lot of effort. And a great tension was released from her life, and she was just a transformed woman because this guilt that had been eating over her all this time, which was self-inflicted. But she had the answer the whole time. But it never occurs to people to ask the obvious questions like, would they be mad at you? Right? We project our worry. So I want us to be open to the possibility that we are sometimes stupid and miss the obvious and make life harder for ourselves than it needs to be. Yeah, Grace.
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Shelley, what's on your mind?
I guess I was thinking, and it was a particular friend who lived alone, and a lot of us tried to take turns at the end of her life, and we all knew, she certainly knew, we all knew. And I used to be uncomfortable hearing other people say to her, oh, I think tomorrow you're going to feel much better, or you're going to get much better. I know it's hard. What do you say? You're there for the person. If they need something, you're there for them. But that was something that I had trouble dealing with in that particular case, that it was silly to say you're going to be better tomorrow, because we all knew, and she knew, that she wasn't going to be better tomorrow.
Well, on the one hand, I hope you're feeling better is always a nice thing to say. I hope that, I understand you're in bankruptcy proceedings, but, I hope things look up for you. I had a friend named Keith, and we were 30 at the time, and maybe 34. And I get a phone call from him, and he says, David, I'm dying. I have a month to live. Okay. Describes to me what he has. I phoned my sister, who's educated in things. I said, he has blah, blah, blah. She says, yeah, he has about a month to live. So he had this cancer that you normally find in elderly women, which he wasn't. And I have my theory that it was having to do with poor relations with his father and expectations, but that's my mishigas. I went to visit him. So what did I do with him? How did we spend the day that I was visiting him? So one thing is, I went with him because he went to his doctor to, see things. And he was a medical student, by the way. He had his medical doctor's thing. He wasn't licensed, but he had all the education. And the first thing we did is went to his doctor's. And then the next thing we did was to get his car smogged, which made no sense whatsoever, because you get your car, the emissions check for the car, so you can renew the car, right? He wasn't going to live to renew his car. Why was he bothering to do the emissions check?
Was he trying to leave less burden for his next of kin?
Maybe, but they're just going to sell the car. Like, why go to the DMV if you don't have to, right?
Well, just some normalcy, some routine that you would normally do.
Yeah. It's he had the scientific knowledge to understand exactly what was going on in his body. And at the same time, he wanted to exercise constructive denial, right? If he is in denial about him dying, then he can live about the day and have a meaningful day and do things, right? But we all are in denial of our death, right? What is the point of my going and learning something now if in 50 years I'm going to die and the learning will be lost? Okay, so what's the point of my reading a book the week before my death? What's the point of my learning anything an hour before my death, right? It's not like I'm going to remember it. And you can take that back to current day, right? What's the point of doing anything if we're going to die? And the answer is, we don't think about our dying and we do it, right? Ernst Becker writes a book, The Denial of Death. And he says the reason human beings are able to function is because we live in a state of denial, and it's a good thing, right? We live in a state of denial, and it enables us to function. And every so often we visit reality, and we get really depressed, and then we go back into denial, and it's fine again, okay? It's like worrying about the election. I allow myself 5 minutes a day to get really pissed off about the fact, I think, that this country is doomed. And then after my 5 minutes of despair, I stop reading that and, I go back to whatever other entertainment or, thing, right? So I think at end of life, you're still allowed to have that denial, right? I had a fellow who was gonna die. And like he did his last this and last this and last that. And then he, went into a coma. And then he rallied. He didn't know what to do. He'd already seen his last film. He'd already read his last book. He'd already had his last meal. And he's still alive. What's he supposed to do? It was annoying. So he saw the humor in that.
Rabbi, on that note, people are saying nowadays that you should tell someone who's dying that it's okay for you to go now, when they're like their death appears imminent. But what happens if they're not ready? If you tell them that they're just not there yet. I mean,
just because you give someone permission to leave doesn't mean that you're kicking them out the door.
Because it feels like you're rushing them. Yeah.
So I think that the context there has to be, Mom, if you are worried about me being sad, it's okay for you to go. If you want to stay, I'm thrilled to have you for as long as you have. Is that a good balance?
That feels a lot better.
Okay. Because I've been in rooms where people are like, praying for healing and praying and praying and praying and praying. And it's like, it comes back to, there are 2 death narratives in the Talmud that are instructive, that I come back to as teachables on how we should approach death. The first is the death of Rabbi Judah Hanassi, and the second is the death of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Judah Hanassi is dying, and all the rabbis are praying for him to live. And the rabbis say, anyone who comes out of this house and tells us that Rabbi has died, we'll kill him for bringing us such horrible news. And they're all praying for him to live, praying for him to live. And he's miserable. And he's putting on his tefillin and taking off his tefillin, and putting on his tefillin and taking off his tefillin, which is the Talmud's way of saying he has to keep going to the bathroom, and it's distressing and it's inconvenient and he's miserable. So there's a servant girl, and she sees what's going on. The rabbis are praying. And so she goes up to the roof and she takes a clay pot and she drops it. And it goes. And in that moment, all the rabbis stop praying. In that moment, his soul escapes. Someone comes out and they say, has Rabbi died? We'll kill anyone who says that Rabbi died. He says, well, I didn't say it, right? But she had more compassion, okay? The story of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish is longer. I find that I tell it again and again and again, and every time I ask, do you remember the story? Nobody ever remembers. I'm going to give you the very shortest version, okay? Because it's a great saga. It's a great story. It's a tremendously fabulous story. But what it is that Reish Lakish has died. That's 90% of the drama already we've skipped. And now Rabbi Yochanan is devastated. And he's just beside himself. And they send him, I forget his first name, Ben Padat, the son of Padat, and probably Shimon, and to study with him. And anything that Rabbi Yochanan says, Ben Padat says, there's a verse that agrees with you. And Rabbi Yochanan says, of course there's a verse that agrees with me. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. I'm never wrong. I have everything I say is supported. But my friend Reish Lakish, no matter what came out of my mouth, he would come up with 24 objections to what I said. And then I would come up with 24 responses to each of his 24 rejections. And together we would sharpen our knowledge. Oh, Reish Lakish, oh, son of Lakish. And he's wailing and crying, and his understanding left him. He was just wailing and crying. And at that point, the rabbis prayed for him, for his release from his suffering of living, and he died, right? Because at that point, it was like, this is someone who needs to have a more than fatal dose of morphine to make the pain go away. So those are the two narratives. If life is miserable, remove obstacles to death. If life is miserable, it's okay to hurry things along a little bit. When I went to law school and we studied criminal law, what is the difference between murder and good palliative care? Murder is, I can see that you're miserable. Here are some pills. 300 milligrams will kill you. I suggest you take them. Okay, that's murder. That's assisted suicide. That's murder. Palliative care. I see that you're in a lot of pain. Take as much as you need to get rid of the pain. I have to warn you, anything more than 100 will probably kill you. But I'm giving you a supply of 300 for you to use as you need. That's not murder. It's sometimes the only way to get rid of the pain is to no longer be in pain. And it's a kindness, right? But that's a decision for that person to make, if they can hit the pain button. When my son was dying because his heart was defective, and it had stopped and he'd been brought back, and it had stopped and he'd been brought back, and it's like, why are we torturing us this way? And he is gasping and gasping and gasping. They gave him some morphine, and it was a kindness. I sure do know how to leave everything on a happy, upbeat note, don't I? Death is a natural part of life. We've gotten very bad at managing it. It used to be something that happened in the home. Children were aware of it. They understood it. They witnessed it. It was part of their literature. We didn't feel a need to protect them from it. Now we don't want people to know, and we want to hide everything. And the funeral parlor looks like a house because the funeral should have been in your house. And doctors have discovered so many cures and so many treatments, but even they are aware that at some point, just because you can extend a life doesn't mean you should. And it's okay to let people go at the end of their life. And Judaism views that we have a soul that exists and continues, and death is just another door to go through. Of course, the Karaites and the Sadducees said, no, this is it. And Milton Friedberg. Okay, one of them is an economist and one of them was a rabbi.
I think Friedman was the economist, so we'll go with Friedberg.
Okay.
The Friedman.
So Milton Friedberg, who writes Milton Steinberg, who writes As a Driven Leaf. He also wrote a book, Basic Judaism, and he was the one that I learned the concept of we achieve immortality through living on in people's thoughts. The Bible, okay, the rabbis say anyone who says there's no afterlife in the Bible doesn't deserve to enter the afterlife, but the truth is there is no afterlife in the Bible. The only afterlife in the Bible is the people live on, right? Abraham is not going to go to heaven. Abraham will be succeeded by generations and generations of descendants, right? So our approach to death should be one of how can we maximize comfort? And that's kind of a Jewish view. I don't know how that how is that different from the Catholic view, Eric?
I have a sense that there's I guess it's kind of a little bit at odds with what you mentioned before, right? That view that coming into Jesus and how we're to stand in their way, right? That that life is so precious at every level, and it should be preserved to kind of at all costs that's out there, and withdrawing care is not permissible. I'm not nitty gritty detail of it, but there is I guess similar to the guide that you pulled up, right? The bishops put out a guide and sit there and say, here's here are issues around birth and light and death. But I guess my general perception is that withdrawal is not as easily accepted, I guess. It was probably a bigger commitment, but that I could be off base on that.
So in Judaism, we have this concept of the goses, okay? A goses, I'll put the word in the chat so that you can see it. Whoops. Just find this here. There we go. A gosses. A gosses is someone who is doomed to die. A person who is not expected to live, is not expected to recover, and has less than a month to live, less than a week to live, less than a day to live. And the Jewish understanding of the gosses is a gosses is treated for all purposes as if they're already dead. So a gosses cannot testify because you can't punish them with death because they're already dead. But we have this notion of once someone is doomed to die, it's okay to start treating them as if they're dead. But at the same time, even when someone is dead, we treat them with kavod as if they were still alive, right? But yeah, once someone is doomed to die, unless they find it comforting to chew, you don't have to force food down their throat. Randy was describing his aunt who had stopped eating and then she started eating. And he says it's like she was eating something and then she was choking. And it's like, oh no. And then the moment she stopped choking, she started eating again because she was really enjoying it. And God bless her. I remember Nookie Kamen, who used to arrive early so that he could walk up the stairs to services, and it took him a long time. And he refused to go in the front door and use the elevator for people who are invalids. No, he had to come in, go down the stairs into the basement, then up the rickety stairs. And the concern amongst the congregation was, Rabbi, he's going to fall down the stairs and break his neck. And my response was, Nookie would rather fall down the stairs and break his neck than suffer the indignity of using that elevator. And I respect that. I'm big on autonomy, right? We all know that the struggle between parents and children or between spouses is a struggle of safety versus autonomy. I want you to be safe, therefore I want to restrict you from doing anything dangerous. But you want to have your autonomy. You would rather have a door that locks and they can't help you than to have them able to come into your room anytime they want. And it's hard to respect people's desire for autonomy, but it's the dignity of the human being. Other questions? So I want to close this off by reminding us of the value of thinking about our death. I believe that one of the reasons why Jewish people tend to outperform non-Jewish people just a tiny little bit is because on an annual basis, we are asked to contemplate our death. At Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we are forced at some point during that time to think about oh my God, what if I don't live this year? And that knowledge and contemplation of death spurs us to use our time more wisely and to reach out to people in our lives and to repair things. And it's one of the 7 habits of productive people from Jim Covey. So I think there's a value in our thinking about what is our procedure and how to die. I think there's a value of looking at Vidui. I know there's has to be someone out there who says the Vidui every night before they go to bed. And they may find it comforting. It's weird, it's kind of comforting. But I think there's a value in having conversations about planning for our deaths because it's a kindness to our survivors. Nobody wants to have the task of cleaning out your basement after you're gone and all the things that you never sorted. And it's nice to be able to have a say because when someone's dying, the caregiver doesn't know which end is up or down. And it's comforting not to have to worry, oh my God, what do they want? If they actually tell you what they want, then that's like less to worry about. So I will send out an email reminding people of this resource that's out there and suggest that people take a look at it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.